Oh, yeah, as I said, I am in the agroecology department, and agroecology, just for some context, is attempting to be a holistic approach towards agriculture. And so just instead of seeing how can we increase yield of a crop, we're looking at the ecological, social, and economic components of agriculture. I personally focus in on the social aspects more than anything. And so my project began because my advisor, Dr. Claudia Calderon, is from Guatemala, and an organization approached her there looking to expand sustainable agricultural practices in the area. I have done work. I lived in Mexico for a couple of years and am fluent in Spanish. And so kind of hopped onto this project with Dr. Calderon over 2 years ago. And we started with conversations virtually with the community partners. And it led to me going down and doing a set of interviews. So our methods were doing semi-structured interviews, snowballing, sampling, and we came out with these two different major themes that people were interested in learning about. And we also asked in those interviews, how do you want to learn? Like what what do you not only how do you want to learn, but who do you want to teach? Who do you want teaching you? Who do you teach when you are transferring knowledge? And so we were just really interested in that knowledge transfer piece within communities. And so the themes that we pulled out from that were soil conservation and medicinal plants, as well as like peer-to-peer learning. People wanted to learn from each other. They didn't just necessarily, although they did appreciate when organizations came in, they also really appreciated the knowledge that was within their communities. And this is something that has been lost, but is definitely being revitalized a lot, is this idea of kind of the one story narrative. There are multiple ways of knowing, including the indigenous knowledges that are definitely very prolific in Guatemala. And so using the 4W grant, focused in on the medicinal plant aspect, because for the most part, women are the holders of that knowledge in their communities. And so our goal was to kind of understand the knowledge gaps and the local knowledge transfer, and focus in on medicinal plants. So I think the next slide has the rest. Cool. Yeah, so from that, we decided to kind of look into the knowledge in the area. And there was a local organization called Menachor, which is Medicina Natural Chortí. The Chortí are the indigenous folks in the area. And there's this organization that was run by Chortí, and they had a lot of information on medicinal plants, as well as how to make things from the medicinal plants, be them tinctures, lotions, teas, different things like that. So we were able to get a group of women from a community to come down, and they did a medicinal plant tour, and then learned how to make a tincture. One of the coolest things was that during the tour, the women from the communities were also teaching the tour guide about medicinal plants. So although it had been kind of set out as an experience where they could gain more knowledge around the area, they were also sharing their knowledge, which ended up being so beautiful, and just an outcome that I did not expect. So, I mean, I should have expected it, but it was very beautiful to see that happening in real time and being an exchange. So that's over in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. On the right-hand corner, we ended up doing what's called a campesino exchange, or a farmer-to-farmer exchange. So we brought folks from the western side of Guatemala to eastern Guatemala, and vice versa. And so our goal there was to really make sure that women's voices were included in that and in the agricultural sphere. So we were sure to have groups of women on each side. So in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see Doña Vicenta. She is teaching about medicinal plants to these other folks, which was really great, because people would say, oh, I thought that was just for food. I didn't know that could be used for medicine, or vice versa. So there was a lot of exchange happening there. And just recently in January, we went back and did the opposite. And we got to see a group of women entrepreneurs who create teas. And so the women from the other side got to see that and see how they did it in the process, and ask them questions, because they're interested in doing that. So it was just a really wonderful way of facilitating the connection of knowledge within the country, versus like just trying to teach people things. And we also focused on soil conservation as well. And we wanted to include, although women were more specifically interested in medicinal plants, they were interested in soil conservation and agricultural practices in general. And we wanted to make sure that they were included in that. So we were able to bring women. Everyone brought their children, so we were always leaving space for people to bring their kids, as well as kind of having didactic material for kids too, coloring books, different things like that, so that the women could fully participate, as well as the children if they wanted to, but that can often be a barrier for people in small communities needing to travel. So we tried to be very conscious of how to include women in those activities. And then finally, we created some multimedia resources. So we're doing some like educational resources for teachers in the communities, as well as ones that'll be posted on YouTube, videos that are going to be posted publicly. And we had the main people in that video be women, because they are also a part of agricultural life, although they might not always be the person that you see. So we wanted to make sure that their voices were included, particularly in the medicinal plants and also in our soil conservation video as well. So thanks to the 4W grant, we were really able to like approach this through that gendered lens. And it really made the project just really fruitful and just wonderful. So yeah, that's most of what was going on.
Thank you, Meg. It was wonderful listening to